Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Spessy here, and we've got 21 new Disney Lorcana cards for the upcoming set to review. Starting off with Vision Slab, a 3-cost inkable item in Emerald. Danger revealed at the start of your turn. If an opposing character has damage, gain 1 lore. And Trapped, damage counters can't be removed. Now, this card looks pretty interesting. In the right style of deck, it could be very powerful. It's not going to be a card which you can just slap into any Emerald deck, but rather a card which in the right setup could provide you a lot of value. It's quite comparable to Sorcerer's Spellbook, which is, of course, a 3-cost uninkable item in Amethyst. That's a big deal that this one is inkable, whereas Sorcerer's Spellbook is not. Of course, Sorcerer's Spellbook, you're having to pay that 1 ink each turn to gain that lore, whereas with Vision Slab, you don't need to pay any ink. However, of course, the condition is not super easy to meet, where your opponent has to have damage on their side of the board. But of course, also damage counters not being able to be removed. This is denying any kind of healing. So going to be a really powerful tool in particular against decks looking to utilize, for example, Rapunzel. Mr. Smee synergy, obviously. There's some Mr. Smee synergy that you can see with certain cards being able to move damage counters from their side of the board to your side of the board. That's not a super common strategy that we see, but any kind of healing is removing damage counters. So this denies your opponent doing any kind of healing, but also denies yourself doing any healing as well. I think this card's actually going to be really powerful in the right setup. In particular, this card looks very interesting to me in a very slow deck. So Steel Emerald is the one which comes to mind, but not these fast Emerald Steel decks that we're seeing in the current metagame, but rather a much more slow one with cards like Grab Your Swords, cards like Tinkerbell. This card could be really, really powerful. If you put this down maybe on turn 7 or so, you're not losing that early tempo where you're looking to control the board. But if your opponent has very few cards in hand, for example, if your opponent has lots of damage on their side of the board, then this is gonna stack up and add value without you having to quest. You're just able to focus all of your characters on board on removing their threats and just let Vision Slab slowly but surely tick up towards that 20 lore mark. I think this card's really good in the right setup though. It's not going to be a plug and play card in every Emerald deck, but I think this will see competitive play with the right setup. Also, I want to mention, I have now seen in Kanto, I've been doing my homework, ladies and gentlemen, and this Vision Slab is not one I recognize from the film, and therefore could be some kind of Disney Lorcana lore to look out for there. Maybe. Up next, we have Brunos Return. This is a 2-cost uninkable action card in Amber. Return a character from your discard to your hand, then remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. This card, I think, is very comparable to Hades from set 1, which does see a tiny bit of play. I wouldn't expect this one to see much play unless there is big support for action card synergy. Of course, song cards at the moment have so much synergy. Action cards, not so much. So if action cards become more popular in terms of a action style deck, this card looks very good. However, for now, I don't think it's going to see much play, but it's definitely a very reasonable card. Again, if this was released in set 1, this would be seeing play in set 1, but now we're all the way in set 4. I'm not expecting it to see much play, again, unless action decks get a lot of support with this new set. Okay, up next we have Peppa Madrigal. And again, I've watched the film now, so I have a little bit more intel on Peppa. She impacts the weather. If she's mad, there's a little cloud above her head, all that kind of stuff, and she is the Weather Maker, another 5-cost uninkable Madrigal card in Amethyst. So Amber and Amethyst have most of the Madrigals. Definitely looks like a starter deck theme. Most likely, Just in Time is a really interesting option with these cards as well, which is a set 1 card I think is really underrated. She only has 1 strength but 5 willpower, and it looks like rain. When you play this character, you may exert chosen opposing character. That character can't ready at the start of their next turn unless they're at a location, which is rather specific. She quests for 1. This card looks pretty terrible. I've got to be honest with you. I do not like the look of her at all. I'm sorry, Peppa, but the Madrigal cards just aren't quite doing it for me, ladies and gentlemen. They're just not doing it for me at all. They look really weak overall, a lot of them. I really don't like this card. It looks pretty pants. This card could be inkable, and I still wouldn't really like the look of it, to be completely honest with you. Only quest for 1? Lame card. Very, very poor. Very, very poor. Up next, we have Camilo Madrigal, which is a 4-cost inkable, 2 strength, 5 willpower, prankster. Camilo is the shapeshifter. They can turn into all sorts of different things. Look at me with my Disney lore knowledge. You see, I'm doing my homework, ladies and gentlemen. I'm taking this seriously. Many forms. At the start of your turn, you may choose one. This character gets 1+ lore this turn, so it can quest for 2. Which is pretty good, honestly. 2 strength, 5 willpower, quest for 2, 4-cost card. Not terrible, but also then you have the option of giving Camilo Madrigal Challenger, which would turn it into a 4/5. This card's okay. The flexibility is definitely nice, but neither of the stats are that impressive. If you compare this card perhaps to Jafar, Keeper of Secrets, which is that 4-cost Amethyst card, which gains strength based on how many cards you have in hand, that card has a baseline lore for 2, and if you have 4 cards in hand, it is a 4/5. So this card, to be completely honest with you, obviously it does have Madrigal synergy, which is important to know because there definitely is some payoff for this Madrigal tag. Not that much from what we've seen so far though, but of course it's still, with set 4, there's so many cards being revealed all the time, it's still hard to piece all the cards together exactly in terms of synergy, but this card just seems a little bit lackluster to me overall. If you compare it to Jafar, Keeper of Secrets, which doesn't exactly see that much play, this is like a lower ceiling version of that card, but like a higher floor, right? Like it's never as bad as Jafar, Keeper of Secrets can be, but also Jafar, Keeper of Secrets just has such a higher ceiling. I don't really like the look of this one particularly. It's okay though, it's definitely not bad. Up next we have Isabella Madrigal, the golden child. She makes flowers, and that she's a 5-cost inkable card, 3 strength, 4 willpower, and she has evasive. Oh my goodness. Ladies first. During your turn, if no other character has quested this turn, this character gets +3 lore, so she can quest for 4. Oh my goodness, that's actually insane as an evasive. However, leave it to me. When this character quests, your other characters can't quest for the rest of this turn. She wants the spotlight all on herself, so she is your only card that can quest. I will say with Just in Time, could be interesting. You Just in Time this on turn number 3, and then you have a card which quests for 4 on turn number 4, and she's evasive. That's pretty scary and can get out of hand pretty quickly. I actually like the look of this card quite a bit. She can be a bit of a one-man army to try and gain lots of lore quite aggressively. Being an evasive 3/4, she's also able to answer Minnie Mouse if you want to decide not to quest with her later on, right? Like if you develop your board a little bit more and then you want to start questing with more than just Isabella for more than 4 lore per turn, then you can still quest with her at the end of your turn to just gain 1 lore with her still, and you can still use her to challenge and remove Minnie Mouses. I think this card's actually very good. I like the look of it quite a bit. Maybe not amazing, but I think this card has potential for sure. Just in Time, putting this down nice and early, questing with it on turn 4 for 4 lore. That can get out of hand really, really quickly. So I think this one's pretty good. Speaking of pretty good, okay, this is a card, ladies and gentlemen. Amethyst has some of the best 1-drops in the game. You've got Chernobog's Followers. You've got Pascal, which is soon to be overshadowed by Pegasus in Emerald, that 1-cost evasive that Emerald has in set 4. But you've also got Rafiki. You've got Maleficent, which is also not terrible. You've got Befuddle. And this is another fantastic 1-drop available to Amethyst. It's a 1-cost location. It has 6 willpower. It doesn't gain any lore passively, and it costs 1 to move a card into it. However, our home at the start of your turn, if you have a character here, gain 1 lore. Pretty interesting. Is it good? 6 willpower is a lot. So let's say you play Pascal on turn 1, then on turn 2, or let's say you play Pegasus on turn 1, maybe it's a slightly better example, which is very similar to Pascal, but just has evasive no matter what. So you play Pegasus from Emerald on turn 1, very similar to Pascal. Then on turn 2, you play Casa Madrigal, you move Pegasus in, you quest with Pegasus. So then at the start of turn 3, if you have a character here, you gain 1 lore. I mean, it doesn't sound that amazing, does it really? But it does have a lot of health. What I will say this is maybe most interesting in is a all-out location deck with something like John Silver. John Silver in the steel ink color from set 3 is a really powerful card which gains resist and 1 lore for every location you have down on the board, and this is just a cheap location which is inkable, which is hard to remove and could be pretty powerful when combined with John Silver. I think this card's definitely got a lot of potential. All in location decks haven't quite worked out so far this set, However, this one is definitely a very, very powerful one if you're all in on locations, because you can dump it down for cheap. It's hard to remove. If you've got a lot of these down on the board, your John Silver could pop off. Certainly an interesting card. Probably not going to see play, as I just kind of did I played it through in my head with the Pegasus. It doesn't really sound like it's impactful enough to just be playing in a standard deck. However, in a all-out location deck, this one's got a lot of potential. All right, up next we have Benja the Mutager Vermal. Okay, it's in a different language. It's a 5/3, 5 strength, 3 willpower, 4 cost, inkable card, quest for 1, won't see play. It's a very vanilla card. Unlucky Benja. Up next we have the Vitali Sphere, which is a 1 cost inkable item. Not the first 1 cost inkable item that we've seen in Ruby this set. Extract of Ruby. You pay 1 ink and banish this item, and chosen character gains rush and gets 2+ strength this turn. So you're paying 2 total to give a character rush and 2+ strength. This card seems most interesting potentially in a Ruby Sapphire deck, because you can just bin it off for Flaversham. But then if you do really want this rush and 2 strength, which could be really powerful in the right situation, then it could be solid. Outside of that, it seems very expensive to be giving something rush and 2+ strength. Ruby often struggles with card draw as well, so you're definitely going to be wanting to play this in a deck which has lots of card draw already, so maybe Sapphire again with the Flaversham makes sense. I'm not really massively convinced by this one. It's certainly a very interesting card, but I struggle to see it seeing play maybe outside of Sapphire. Let me know what you think on this one. Certainly an interesting one. Is this also like a Lorcana specific card, Extract of Ruby? It looks kind of like a, Lorcana specific lore card. Up next we have John Silver, which this is the original card and this is the translation on it. John Silver, Terror of the Empire. It's an 8 strength, 8 willpower, 8 cost inkable Sapphire card which quests for 3. I don't think it's going to see play. It's a big dude, but often when you're paying 8 ink for a card, you want it to have an impact as it enters the board, and this one doesn't, so I don't think it's going to see play. Up next we have RLS Legacy Cannon, which is a 3 cost uninkable item. You can exert it, baboom! Exert it, 2 ink to discard a card, deal 2 damage to chosen character or location. That is very expensive, so you pay 3 ink, and then next turn, you pay another 2 ink and discard a card to deal 2 damage. No thank you. I don't like it. Unless you have like a million cards available in your hand, so like a whole new world deck, or there's big discard synergy, like if you discard a card, you draw a card, something like Reverse Prince John. No such card exists. This is way too expensive, but maybe down the line, it could see some play. With the current cards, I don't see it one bit though. Okay, up next we have Prince Phillip, Warden of the Woods, a 4 cost uninkable character in Emerald with 3 strength and 4 willpower. It quests for 2. And the Shining Beacon ability, your other hero characters gain ward. Wow, okay, well there's a lot of hero characters in the game. There is a lot, so this one has potential. It's also a prince, so there's some prince synergy there potentially. 3/4 stat line, questing for 2 is reasonable. Definitely not bad. I mean, if you compare its stat line to Mickey Mouse from set 1 in Amber, which is a 3 cost inkable card with no ability, with 3 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 2. Its stats are pretty lackluster. It costs 1 more than Mickey Mouse for this ability and also is uninkable. But its ability is potentially very good. Ward is an incredibly powerful keyword potentially. Particularly if you can give like evasive cards ward, that's where maybe Prince Phillip could really shine. This one I think will definitely be very strong. Even if it's not very strong initially, I'm sure that there's going to be some pretty powerful hero combos. And this is just a card which could just chill on the board, sitting there doing nothing for a little bit, similar to Prince John, for example, where you get your value from it, and then at some point you decide to quest. And the fact that it lords for 2 is pretty good, and it's pretty hard to remove with that 4 willpower, 3 strength. It's pretty good, I think. I like the look of this card overall. Obviously depends on what heroes you actually want to play, but there's a lot of heroes in the game. There is a lot of heroes. All right, up next we have probably the card I'm most excited for as an Emerald Discard fanboy, which is a 5 cost uninkable Jasmine card, 3 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 2, And we've got the translation here, the Desert Warrior. She has the ability Smart Maneuver, rough translation, bear in mind. When you play this character and every time she is challenged, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So the beautiful thing about Jasmine Desert Warrior that I love, and it's exactly what I'm looking for in a card, is that she is doing not only something when she quests, like Daisy Duck, but also when she's played, similar to Friar Tuck. So she's like Friar Tuck and Daisy Duck mixed in all at once, except she's uninkable rather, but also doesn't have that downside that Friar Tuck has, which is that you have to have less cards in your hand than your opponent. This card is so good. I love the look of her in my discard decks. I'm going to be playing her a whole bunch. Of course, having a 5-cost uninkable card is not the easiest to justify, but with Emerald, you already have a lot of card draw potentially with cards like Prince John. You also have potentially the Strike a Good Match card, which is a good option to sing with Ursula, and just sing with your 2-cost Ursula as well to discard expensive uninkables in certain situations. This card's great. I love the look of this card. I really, really do. This is a brilliant, brilliant card. And the key thing to note is the fact that she does something when she enters the board and when she quests. So not only is she a threat on the board like a Daisy Duck, but she's got that instant impact. So even if she gets removed by Medusa instantly, she's still gained you a whole bunch of value, particularly if you had a Prince John down on the board. And you guys know how much I love a bit of Prince John action. Amazing, amazing card. We'll see a whole bunch of competitive play. I love the look of it. All right, up next we have Goofy, the Musketeer Swordsman, which I think I have a slightly cleaner image here. A lot of these reveals are now being done by creators, which is a really awesome incentive by Ravensburger. So big shout out to them. But the slightly cleaner image here is Goofy Musketeer Swordsman, a 4-cost uninkable, 3 strength, 4 willpower. It's a musketeer. Oh, hello. Oh, gosh. I think I might have butchered that one. Oh dear. When you play a character with bodyguard, ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of this turn. Musketeer deck. Is it good yet? No. It's not. Most of the Musketeer cards kind of suck, unfortunately. They kind of sucked in set 1. And now 4 sets later, they kind of still suck. There just isn't really enough Musketeer synergy. Now, this is coming from a man that plays in set 1, a lot of goofy 5-cost bodyguard. I really like that card. I liked it quite a bit. But that was back in set 1. And even then, the Musketeer synergy wasn't really enough. I mean, this card, if you ignore the Musketeer synergy, could it be good? I mean, it's not terrible. The all-out bodyguard decks haven't really proven to be quite good enough as of yet. This is maybe a step in the right direction, but being uninkable puts me off quite a bit. Do you really care about readying it? You can quest for 2 with the Goofy, and then you can also challenge something with the Goofy as well. Maybe a couple of times, right? You could challenge, play a card. You could quest, play a card, play another card, challenge again. So you could do like 2 or 3 challenges in theory a turn with this card, but it's only got 3 strength, 4 willpower. It's not doing that much. It's okay. I don't think it's going to see competitive play though, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, up next we have the Aurora Law Guardian, which we've got a translation on this one. It's a 4-cost inkable card in Sapphire, 3 strength, 3 willpower. It has shift 2. There is a 2-cost Aurora, which is a solid enough card, like a very vanilla stat line. 2/2 quest for 2, the cost 2. So that's a half decent shift target. I don't believe there's any 1-cost Auroras in the game as of yet. This one quest for 2 as well. You can exert it. Exert one of your items, rather. Her ability is exert one of your items, look at the top card of your deck, put it on either the top or the bottom of your deck. So, once per turn, I guess this is, you can exert one of your items to put the top card, to basically have a little mini, not quite develop your brain. You look at the top card and put it on either the bottom or the top. This card doesn't seem very good to me, honestly. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems... Oh, opponents can't choose your items. I missed that part. Okay, so that's that changes things a little bit, right? In a very heavy Benja meta, for example, if you're like your item deck is getting completely countered by Benja, obviously you could protect your Fishbone Quill with this. Maybe there's some use case there. Her stat line is just super underwhelming, though, to be honest. I'm not really sure I'm convinced, but yeah, it's an interesting card. I think she's maybe lacking a little bit personally, but certainly an interesting ability overall. and could be an interesting metacal to run like 1 or 2 copies of this as a tech card. But I don't see it seeing a whole bunch of competitive play. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe if there's more cards similar to Venger which get printed with set 4 that are really, really strong in more ink colors. Like at the moment, Emerald has to play Wildcat, which kind of sucks. Amethyst doesn't really have anything. But if more colors get cards comparable to Venger, then maybe this Aurora could become more relevant in the right deck. Okay, up next we have Field of Ice, which is a 3-cost inkable item, which reads Icy Defense. When you play a character, they gain resist +1 until the start of your next turn. So, interesting card. Very interesting. Best use case with this is rush characters, right? If you have rush synergy, which we did see like this red card earlier, this red item, which isn't massive synergy, but with cards like Maui, Madam and Fox, those are the kind of main 2 ones which come to mind. There's also this new Goofy card in Ruby, which is a 4-cost rush character. Being able to give a rush character resist 1 is pretty interesting. Obviously, it could also be Flavisham Fuel down the line. You could also exert this potentially with your Aurora, because this is never being exerted, so you get some value from exerting this with Aurora to look at the top card from your deck and put it on either the top or the bottom. So that's kind of interesting. It's pretty expensive. The other thing that it does do is it somewhat protects you from your opponent's damage spells, right? Like, let's say they... if you're not playing a rush character, but let's just say you play something, I don't know, like a 1-cost Maleficent, which has 1 strength, 1 willpower. Suddenly, your opponent needs to deal 2 damage to it rather than 1. That's maybe not the best example. Let's say something which has 2 health. Suddenly, they can't baboom it, but they would need to smash it. Or you play a 3-cost Ursula, and suddenly your opponent's smash isn't removing her. But that all seems rather niche. And definitely the best use case for this one does seem like cards like Maui, cards like Madam and Fox. And it's a pretty interesting card for that. It is pretty slow. I'm not massively convinced by this, but maybe as a card which you play 1 or 2 copies of, it could be pretty reasonable with the right setup. Certainly a purple Sapphire deck where the Fox in particular can be pretty good. And if there's more rush characters in purple and Sapphire, or Amethyst Sapphire, maybe this card could see some more play at the moment. I'm not super convinced by it though. But down the line, it's got potential, that's for sure. Pretty expensive for what it does, I think, overall. Up next, we have Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion, another Musketeer card. It's another 5-cost uninkable, just in time, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It has 1 willpower, 5 strength, it quests for 2, and it has Bodyguard. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 5 strength or more. So very powerful, potentially. The problem is, how on earth are you actually removing, like... When would you want to play this card when your opponent has a character which has 5 strength or more? And probably the answer is with the Queen. The Queen in the 5-cost Queen, that is, where you can give your opponent extra strength when you quest with her, and then your Minnie Mouse comes through, and then you get some control with this card. That's going to be the main synergy. This one actually has potential. This one does have potential. A Bodyguard which quests for 5 is pretty interesting. Still not massively convinced, but it's a step in the right direction for the Musketeer theme, really. Still not convinced the deck's going to be great, to be honest, but there's some potential here with this one. And next we have Alma Madrigal, which I'll give you the translated version of this one, as I zoom out rather clunkily. Alma Madrigal, a 3-cost uninkable one. This is a very interesting card because it adds a new mechanic into the game. She's a 1 strength, 3 willpower card which quests for 2. And when you play this character, you can search your deck for a Madrigal character and reveal that card to all players. Shuffle your deck and place that card on top of it. So you're not actually adding the card to your hand, you're just adding the card to the top. But it's obviously a new mechanic where you can search your deck for a card. Yu-Gi-Oh players, I think, fear any kind of mechanic like this. I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh since I was about 9 years old, but my understanding of the Yu-Gi-Oh meta, and this, I'm coming at from a bit of a hater perspective because I'm not interested in Yu-Gi-Oh, but my understanding of the Yu-Gi-Oh meta is you play a card on turn 1 to look for a card from your deck, and that card helps you look for another card from your deck, which helps you look from another card from your deck, and you can, in theory, win on turn 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh without even your opponent doing anything. And I do understand, my understanding is that's a bit of a meme combo, which is not actually competitive, but that is a thing that can actually happen, which is just ridiculous to me. And that is, this card is kind of, you know, beginning to open up. Obviously, it's nowhere near that level right now, but it's just definitely a very powerful ability, potentially. And we're seeing the first kind of ability like this, where you can look for a card from your deck. For example, like in mill deck, if you're able to search your deck for a whole new world and put it on top of your deck, that would give that kind of deck a whole bunch of support. So if there's a Madrigal character which you could put on top of your deck, which then the other Madrigal character card then allows you to search for more cards, right? I mean, in theory, I guess what you could do is with your Alma Madrigal, you could put your next Alma Madrigal character on top of your deck, right? And then just rinse and repeat. I don't think you'd want to do that because this card is not actually that good. And that's kind of the bottom line. She is not actually adding to your hand. She's just adding a card to the top. If she was adding a card to your hand, I'd be so much more interested in this card. But overall, the Madrigal cards just look pretty pants. And this one is unfortunately the same. But maybe fortunately the same. Certainly very interesting, and I'm excited to check it out. But seems more like a starter deck theme, which is not going to see competitive play, to be honest. Up next, we have Stitch, which is very small. Let me zoom in. Stitch is a 2-cost inkable amber card. Rockstar Stitch, by the way. 2 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1. Obviously, you usually think this is pretty pants, but Rockstar Stitch in amber. This is Rockstar Stitch support. Pretty interesting. Rockstar Stitch feels like it's almost good at points, but still feels a little bit off it. So more support, more shift targets for Rockstar Stitch is definitely interesting and exciting. But Rockstar Stitch quite slow overall. Kind of need some more ways of reducing the cost of Rockstar Stitch outside of Pluto and Lantern to try and get Rockstar Stitch down on turn 3. You've also got Pride Lands, but yeah, every time I've played Rockstar Stitch, unfortunately, I've been pretty unconvinced. And next we have a 5-cost inkable Sapphire card called Dang Hu, which I've probably butchered. I have no idea what this is from. The Talon Chief. 3 strength, 5 willpower, quest for 2. You better talk fast. Your other villain characters gain support. Support's a pretty good keyword, and this is just when it's on the board. So she's having an instant impact, right? You play her, and then if you've got other villain characters, suddenly you could have like 4 support characters all at once. Obviously, there's this Alice card from set 2, which has never seen play, which is if it gets 10 strength, can quest for 5 or something, or 4. Support's a really good keyword, and honestly, this card looks pretty damn good in the right deck. We still haven't really seen any theme decks pop off too much, like any princess and queen decks or any villain decks. Maybe the closest we've come is in set 3 with Jafar decks. This is definitely a step in the right direction, though. I think this card has really, really good potential. I actually like the look of this one quite a bit. I think this could be a enabler for villain decks to some extent. Support's a very, very good keyword, and what I like about her is she has an instant impact. Important to note that she doesn't have support herself, because it says your other villain characters, but the fact that she does something instantly and she's an engine that still demands to be answered is pretty damn interesting. I think this one could be good. And next we have Mirabel Madrigal, and obviously the quality of these images falling off a bit because there's a TikTok or Instagram creator down here who revealed this one. She's the Prophecy Finder, 2-cost inkable card, 2 strength, 2 willpower, only quest for 1. She has support. It's a no from me, honestly. I'm really unimpressed by these Madrigal characters. Unfortunately, I don't think this card's any good. You can compare it to Philo from set 1, the Sapphire card, who is a 3/1 2-cost inkable, which quests for 1 also and has support. You'd probably rather the 3/1 for the extra stats on the support. Maybe you could argue wouldn't. I mean, Philo wasn't the worst card. Honestly, maybe this card's a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. One thing that the Amber decks can struggle with is board presence, and she does give you some board presence. Suddenly, you know, if you've got like a Simba down or some kind of like 3-cost card, like a Baloo, maybe you could give your Baloo 2 strength, challenge of Baloo. It's not really the most impressive, but she's okay. She's definitely not terrible, but up next we have the Miracle Candle, which is a 2-cost item. And this one I'm pretty disappointed in the ability of as well. I don't think it's going to see competitive play. You banish this item. If you have 3 or more characters in play, you gain 2 lore and remove up to 2 damage from chosen location. Removing damage from location is so niche. The rest of the ability is just not quite up to scratch. Basically, what this card really reads is pay 2 to gain 2 lore if you have 3 characters in play. Which isn't terrible, but For 2 cost, you could play Wendy Darling, which reads, for 2 cost, gain 2 lore and demand an answer, right? Like, why would you play this card over Wendy? Well, you would need some serious item synergy. You would need to be playing locations, which it's so rare that your location is going to be like end the turn with damage, right? Because they're just going to remove the location in one swoop, or if they see the miracle candle, they're not going to attack the location, right? And then you could argue, okay, you play the miracle candle with the location, but then you need a location, you need 3 characters, and you need this. Nah, bad card. Obviously, gaining lore without being able to be like answered, similar to a goat, is quite powerful at times, but this card is just not really doing it for me. Rather just play a 2 cost card which quests for 2, like Wendy. So yeah. All right, those are the 21 cards. There's more cards coming in the next few days. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know if you think there's any cards I've really underestimated in this one. Give the video a like. And also just to let you know, the Lorcana content's kind of slowing down a little bit this week. Just trying to make sure I avoid burning out. We've got the new set in like 2 or 3 weeks where I'm going to be going into absolute overdrive mode. I've been super busy with Lorcana for the last few weeks in the lead up to the set champs, and I've certainly got a history of burning out on the card game I create content for. It happened with Gwent, happened with Marvel Snap. So taking a little bit of time off this week just to get some personal stuff sorted out, I think seems like a good plan. So that's why there's not been too many streams and stuff like that in the last week or so. But certainly going to be back to it pretty soon and excited to play more Lorcana. All right, guys, take care. See you very soon. And bye. Bye. Bye.